Hi, today I'm going to be talking about how to set prices in a non-programmatic environment for digital media. I'm going to focus on the question of which attributes are important. This is almost a forgotten art as more and more media has moved programmatic, but as we'll discuss, it's still very relevant in a lot of different environments for a lot of different products and a lot of different markets. I'm going to be talking about the features that you need to think about to incorporate into your pricing and some of the features that honestly you shouldn't be wasting your time on. These are very hard earned lessons from many years where I feel like I was focusing on some of the wrong attributes. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the areas that still use non-programmatic advertising. The first is areas where the ad product is differentiated or unique in some way, so the programmatic standards don't apply. Right now, this pertains to a lot of things like digital out of home, or maybe it's a new app where there are new ad standards that haven't yet been established. Another example is when the market is a laggard, when it's underdeveloped in some ways, and these tend to be actually the countries that are developing countries. India, China, Southeast Asia, where the programmatic standards aren't used as much and where the buying and selling of ad inventory still relies much more on person-to-person interaction. The final example is when the publisher believes that there is value in the product that hasn't been well represented by the product team and isn't really well understood by the market. And in this case, the publisher may choose to make the decision to invest in a sales team to sell the product directly to advertisers. Let's think about what do the advertisers care about when they're buying ad inventory from a publisher. And again, I'm using the publisher term very broadly here. Basically, anyone who's creating ad inventory. The first thing that they care about is the size, location, duration of the ad. Basically, how prominent, how impactful is it? And when we talk about location, it could be the physical location or it could be the device location. Are we talking about a TV, PC, phone, etc.? And then location could also be the location on a page. If a web page loads and multiple ads are loading, is it the location that's prominent, takes over the whole screen, or is it a location over on the right rail or even below the fold? All these things are very important when we think about the value of the ad. The second thing is the environment. And again, clearly closely related to the location. But when I think about the environment, and if I'm an advertiser thinking about the environment, I'm thinking about, is it an environment that is well understood, clean, not a lot of spam, not a lot of other advertisers being shown. Again, it's a proxy for how impactful that ad is going to be. And then we need to talk about the audience. How big is the audience and who is the audience? The first is simply a matter of numbers. Are we talking about tens of people, hundreds of people, thousands or millions of people who might see this ad? But then the question also comes up, what is the audience composition? Are these people who are likely to buy this product or likely to be impacted and swayed to buy this product? And that is often looked at through demographics, through behavioral targets, through other ways of talking about the audience that's seeing that product. Let's look at an example, and for the sake of this example, I'm going to keep the audience size the same at 10 million people. Let's talk about an ad showing on a traditional TV screen. It is going to take over the full screen and it's going to last for potentially 15, but in this case I'm going to say 30 seconds, may last for longer. And let's compare that against a different ad format. Let's talk about an online video small player. This is going to appear on a PC or potentially on a tablet. It's not going to be full screen, it's going to be smaller. It's going to be what's called a 300 by 250 pixel ad. You don't necessarily need to know the size, but be aware that it's going to take up a fraction of the screen. Possibly it's going to run for really any duration. It would need to run for at least 1 second to be deemed viewable by most of the standards, but ideally it's going to run for 15 seconds. And then let's compare that against a static display ad. Again, seen by 10 million people, running on a PC. Let's assume that it's the same size as the video ad that was running in the small player, 300 by 250 pixels. In this case, how long it is viewed is unknown. So it may be on the screen, it may be sitting there not being watched as someone reads an article, but it's unknown. These are three similar, but in many respects very, very different ad experiences. If we think about the one that's clearly the least valuable, which is the static display ad appearing on a web page, and make it 1x, then what we see is that the online video small player is going to be somewhere between 2 and 5 times more valuable. And I appreciate that is a huge range. There are so many factors that come into play here. And the traditional TV ad is going to be that much more valuable again. It could be 30 to 50 times more valuable than the static display ad. And I'm just using these as ballpark numbers to sort of show that even though we've really only changed 2 or 3 attributes, the device that it was loading on and how long it was seeing, we get very different results in terms of the value of those products. So I'm going to call these the tier 1 attributes that you need to think about when you're pricing product. The next tier that we need to think about, that I'm going to call potentially important, in things that often consumes the time of a pricing yield team, is they basically have to look at them because they often can't change the tier 1 attributes. If you're a website owner, you're probably not going to be able to change those tier 1 attributes very much. So one of the first things we think about is viewability. Many years ago, the key dynamic was, is the ad showing above the fold, meaning as the user comes onto a web page, do they see the ad immediately, or do they need to scroll down, quote, below the fold in order to see the ad? That definition has somewhat gone away now, and people just talk about the overall viewability of the product. But the second thing is the ad serving priority. Is it a guaranteed ad unit, or is it remnant, meaning that it's not going to guaranteed to serve on the page at any given time, and so it's lower priority. And then the third thing to think about is the audience type, demographic or behavioral. So in other words, a demographic example might be, is the audience primarily targeted that men 18 to 34 or women 18 to 34, etc. That would be a demographic example. A behavioral example could be that the website has knowledge about this person and knows that they're going to be some series of interest in a given category. Maybe they have shown all the signs of being interested in buying a car that would make them an auto intender. These types of things can be very valuable, and so some people might take issue with the fact that I'm calling this a tier 2 kind of attribute rather than tier 1, because the difference between a very valuable audience and a not valuable targeted can also be very significant. But to come back to the previous example we just talked about, you're going to get TV ads that are untargeted that can be very valuable. If you get a very targeted ad to a very specific audience, but it's showing up on a web page in a very small ad format, I'm going to argue it's not a very valuable ad. And so these would be the secondary consideration things that you should think about. And you should think about them. This is on the list of things that should be thought about. Let's move our attention, though, to things that people do spend a lot of time looking at, but I'm going to argue possibly don't need to be looked at. And one or two of these are controversial. So one is the sell-through rate. And here, let's talk about what sell-through rate means first of all. Sell-through rate is the idea that if I'm a publisher, I could be showing ads every time my page loads. But if I don't have advertisers who want to put them in there, I may end up having to show house ads or remnant ads, or basically it's unsold. There is a very different dynamic within a publisher when they are sold through and they are, have 80, 90, 100% sell through on a page than when they have low sell through, 20, 30, 40%. And people will be running around scared within a publisher if the sell through gets too low. From an advertiser perspective, though, they really don't care unless they actually can't get the product they want. There are specific examples when you might have a homepage that's heavily sold through and advertisers really want to be on it. That may influence the pricing. But in general, this is something that I see a lot of people spending a lot of time on. I have spent a lot of time on looking at how demand is going to come in. And in hindsight, is probably something that we should have really deprioritized. It's something that causes a lot of internal churn within the publisher, but really probably shouldn't be moving the value or the price that it's represented in the market at very much at all. The second thing is a frequency cap. It's the idea of how often do you want to show a given ad to a given user. And this may be capped to say, okay, I'm only going to allow a given user to see that ad 3 times per day. It's potentially valuable. It potentially moves the value. But again, I'm going to put it in that category of things where probably too much time and attention over the years has been put on this attribute. In very specific cases, it can change the value of the ad product, but it's not where I'd be starting. And then another one is time of week or time of year, and I actually did put an asterisk on this. The asterisk relates to the fact that it is known within digital media that prices go up as you get closer to the holiday season. And in Q4 in particular, you may see the price of inventory go up anything 10, 20, 30%. And so during those peak times, yes, you need to potentially move your prices up. But for the vast majority of the year, you probably actually don't need to be moving your prices around very much at all. Time of week is also a similar dynamic where weekend traffic tends to be lower and therefore you could argue pricing often needs to be lower, but this is also in the category of kind of set it and forget it. If you've established that your weekdays are more valuable, maybe you set up a different price on your rate card, but I wouldn't be spending a ton of time digging into time of week effects. And now we get to the category that I'm calling don't waste your time. And one example is cross elasticity. I've talked about this in other videos, but the example here is, should you be worrying about the price of one ad product in conjunction to another? So for example, on your homepage, if you are raising the price of the banner that appears at the top of the page, but it starts to sell out and you change the price, should you be worrying about the price of the other ads on the page or on other pages that you control? I've spent a lot of time on this and wasted a lot of time. Don't worry about it. There may be some corner cases where it is useful, but it pales in significance to the self-elasticity, which is to say the price-demand response for an individual product. In that same category, and again, this is a reminder that this is for non-programmatic, I'm going to put time of day, which is an interesting one, because in this particular case, time of day means we know that there are times that are more valuable. Around lunchtime, if you've got an advertiser at a fast food restaurant, they may want to get access to certain inventory at certain times of the day. But the caveat here is it's really hard to sell to those individual advertisers in a non-programmatic fashion. If and when I do one of these on programmatic pricing, time of day may be one of those features where I say, yeah, put it in the hopper of things that need to be thought about when we're moving around pricing floors. But for non-programmatic pricing, don't waste your time. So with that, and particularly the things not to waste your time on, I hope that this is valuable to all the pricing and yield teams out there in digital media. Thanks for taking the time to review this material with me.